Then we'll move on to talking about what career is, what career growth is. We'll talk about who owns what in the process. Then how do you actually start acting on it, right?
Hello and welcome everyone. Hope you're keeping well and staying safe. This is Hafsa Anjum and I am working as a community executive at Recro, wherein we are working towards building an exclusive community for developers to help you get connected with like-minded people, build your network, and grow professionally. So those who don't know about what Recro is, Recro is a developer-focused platform. We are helping developers to meet the right opportunity by connecting them with the fast-growing startups such as CureFit, Udan, Swiggy, Dunzo, etc. So welcome to Recro Talks, and today we are having a webinar on how to look at the career growth. So our guest speaker for today is Vaibhav Agarwal. Vaibhav is the head of engineering at Metasky with 8+ years of experience. He has been in different roles like SDE lead, SDE, SDET. He takes the pride in mentoring and guiding people while also learning at the same time. Thank you so much, Vaibhav, for joining us. You may go ahead and say hi to the audience.
Hi everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Hafsa. I would like to thank Recro as well for giving me this chance to talk about career growth and share my experience and learning. And Hafsa for guiding me and working with me through this process of setting everything up and making this possible. Uh, Secondly, I'm really excited about the number of people that are joining. I really hope that this session proves useful to you and beneficial for you. Just to so I'll set up the agenda for the session. We'll start with a quick intro of mine. Then we'll move on to talking about what career is, what career growth is. We'll talk about who owns what in the process. Then how do you actually start acting on it, right?
So I have a few announcements to make before we start. So you can post your questions in the Q&A tab and we will take them up in the last 15 minutes of the session or maybe along while Weber presents his slides. So it's up to Weber. So I think Weber would morely prefer answering your questions while he's explaining anything. So we will be rolling out the poll in between of the session. So please do answer them, and we'll also be having some links in the chat in between. So please make sure that you would go through the links and look through the profiles and communities that we were giving in, and keep your notepad handy and whatever you're learning from this today's session, so that you don't miss away anything, any important takeaways that Webhub is giving us today. And tag Recro, tag Webhub, tag me if any of your takeaways are something that you're posting on your social channels. So over to you, Webhub. So let's get started.
Thanks, Hafsa. Uh, hey guys, once again, I'll start with a quick intro of mine, right? Uh, Cool. So as you can see on the screen, I'll start with what I'm doing right now. As Hafsa already told you, I'm currently working as head of engineering with Metasky. I joined Metasky in mid of Jan 2022. In fact, in its very early stages, the founders of Metasky, Ankit and Prakash, started it just around September or October. Uh, so yeah, currently leading engineering there, trying to make our first version of the products. Prior to that, I was working with Amazon for about 8.5 years, which was my entire professional journey after college. Uh, so when I quit Amazon, when I left Amazon, I was working as a software development manager with a team of about 12 to 13 people. Uh, my role, or rather my team, owned developing the backend for product pages on Amazon. So any product page that you would see on Amazon on any device type or any marketplace, the backend framework for those pages was developed and maintained by my team. So I was as SDM for about 3 or 3.5 years. Prior to that, I was an SD2 and in an SD lead role. At Amazon, these are not a SD lead is not a dedicated role. So it's kind of a function of your job. So I was an SD lead and SD2. Prior to that, I was SD1. And in my first year of career, I was an SDET, software development engineer in test, because funny story, Amazon just wanted to have software development engineer in tests from IIT Mandi back then. Uh, so prior to that, I did my computer science engineering from IIT Mandi. Fun fact, or rather trivia. I joined IIT Mandi in 2009, and this was the first batch of IIT Mandi, in fact. So you can say that I'm from the first batch of IIT Mandi. Uh, this is more about how my journey has been. As I progress along with the slides, we'll also talk about, I'll also give you small anecdotes. I'll tell you why I made some decisions, right? And I'll also talk about how my journey has been in detail once go through all of this content, so that you can relate to why I've made some certain choices, right? Why my journey looks this way. Uh, Before I move on ahead, I just wanted to very quickly know from everyone here, is there anything you would like to know about me in my intro? So if yes, just feel free to put it in the chat or Q&As and I'll answer that. Meanwhile, I'll go through, right? Uh, Okay, so now coming over uh, career growth, right? Today's agenda is mostly focused on how do you even start thinking about career growth? How do you even start acting on it? Uh, while it may be obvious to some people here, some people may have never followed this process or not even heard about this process, right? But once you have this process or once you have this framework or you know about it at least, uh, everything seems pretty obvious, right? And you just have to take steps to make sure that you are continuously doing it. So before I go on to explaining what career growth means, I just want to take a pause here. I would like to really know from everyone here, what is it that you are expecting to know, or what would be your key takeaways, expected key takeaways from this chat or this presentation, right? So please feel free to put them in the chat or Q&As. Uh, I'll just give it a minute, Hafsa, so that we can see something what people are expecting. Okay, so Kirti says blueprint to grow in career, guidance basically. Thanks, Kirti. Anyone else? This basically having your inputs would help me guide uh, deciding how much time I spend where, right? Making sure that I talk about those points specifically which you're wanting to know in this presentation, what you're putting in the chat. Cool. So no worries. Please keep your inputs coming in. Okay, I see two more inputs right now, which is how to make right decisions to have the right career. Interesting. This is asked by Pita Maheshwari. Then I go to Shirawat, who says career growth is only in corporate sector or business also. Interesting. Uh, Nikhil says how to succeed as a software development engineer from different background. Uh, and Ramya says, I'm returning to work after a break of 10 years. Any suggestions from my experience? Cool, very interesting questions. And I think all of this maybe maybe not directly, but we'll try to answer all these questions that you have just put in here to grow in one company or keep switching. Thanks, guys. This gives me a good direction. This and most of my conversation or the slides will also try to cover what you have put here. There are some very specific questions. I'll try to also answer them as and when I'm running through the slide and I wherever it fits the best, right? Cool. So now I'm proceeding ahead. Career growth. So what actually does career growth mean, right? Uh, for that we have to understand what does career mean, right? uh, what is career? We all have this unconscious or subconscious sense of what career is, right? We have all impressions in our mind. Career, we all know that career is definitely a journey from one point to another, right? And it's not a small time thing. It's not a matter of 1 or 2 years. In fact, career is something that you do during your entire journey, during your entire lifetime. And it's not just about let me put it this way, it's not just about the professional journey, right? Because your career is also very tied up to your personal life. So in fact, one of the questions that I think just give me a sec. Ramya said, right? I'm returning to work after a break of 10 years. This can be because of personal reasons. There are variety of things which can make people take certain decisions. So think of it as professional life and personal life are intermixing and interdependent on each other, and your career is going to be significantly impacted by what's happening in your life. And I'm going to talk about how different paths evolve, or how different types of career growth happen uh, with how, as your life proceeds as well. So yeah, career growth overall. to summarize once again, it's a journey, it's a big picture. It's about your entire career. As I wrote on the top of my first slide, career is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Uh, I've interestingly I've done this myself, and I've seen people doing it as well, where we care a lot about what happens in the small time frame of 6 months to 1 years or maybe 2 years. But when you look at this elongated time period of about 15 to 20 years where you work, maybe these 6 months or 1 years are just a blip in the bigger scale, right? Uh, cool. So I'm going to move on to next thing, and this is where I want inputs from all of you. So I want to know from this particular audience, what does career growth mean for you, right? And how it goes is you can only select one of the options, right? For now. So what are the five options here? You can see career growth as a promotion to next level. You can see career growth as opportunity to work on new inventions or technologies. Uh, or maybe you can see it as working on projects with greater influence, learning new skills, or anything else, right? Think of it as numbering of 1 to 5. And I just want you to just put in one number from 1 to 5, which resonates the most with you. So I'll take about 30 seconds break just to let everyone answer this.
I
Four.
love we are like actually waiting for people to answer from the poll type question. So
No,
there's
yeah. Go
so
ahead.
there's
Sorry.
a question that Amar is asking on LinkedIn Live. Well, it's about your journey. How is it being associated with the early startup company after working in Amazon for so many years?
Sure. So while the inputs flow in, let me talk about that. Yeah, I was trying to answer this later, but I'll do that right now. It will make it more interesting. Uh, First of all, you have to realize that I didn't leave Amazon because there was something wrong going on, right? Uh, I did not join Metasky because I wanted to leave Amazon. Let's be crystal clear on that. In fact, this is one of the blogs that I wrote on LinkedIn soon after I left Amazon, and I will reiterate it here. I had big aspirations within Amazon, and I was particularly enjoying at Amazon. In fact, my aspirations were so big that I wanted to be VP at some point of time in Amazon before my career ends, right? And there was never a circumstance where I saw, okay, I was very inclined to just switch companies, right? Why was that possible? Because first of all, I was very lucky in terms of my management, in terms of people who were working with me. I was working with very talented folks. I was working with very good and generous folks. So my managers had always been great. So what really happened was I was getting the right opportunities. I was getting the right recognition. I was also getting the chance to learn whatever I wanted. Right. So, for example, when I wanted to become an SDM, or rather when I wanted to become an SDM, this was something that I was aligned in from my college days. I, in my college days, I was part of program management club. I also started entrepreneurship club in IIT Mandi. So more or less, I've always liked working with people. It has been fun. So I was always clear that at some point in time I'm going to make this transition. What really went good was being at Amazon, I didn't require a specific degree, right? As long as I am fulfilling what the job demands, what the role demands, and I've proven myself on that, it's on the merit basis, right? And Amazon allowed me to do that. I learned a lot, many things staying at Amazon in terms of what people management actually means, right? It's not just about giving the work, right, or distributing the work. It's about working with your team, growing everyone. It's about being a guardian, or let's say a shield to your team, and a lot more aspects. So that was good. Now coming to the next part of question, right, which is the main essence of the question: how did I suddenly transition from Amazon to Metasky? Very good question. Uh, so somewhere down the line, I realized that maybe you can say for a quarter or two during my last 6 months at Amazon, I started spending a lot of time on working with so many teams and conflict resolution. Right, my role was becoming slowly transitioning into a high level manager, and what I slowly realized was that okay, I am getting very far away from tech. And when you work in a big company such as Amazon, you own a very specific piece, you own a very specific component, and you work within the technologies that are established there. So while the talent that you're working with is great, you're still in a walled garden, right? You can only work on so much. Now I decided that okay, this is the time where I want to give a chance to learning a lot more, right? I've learned what I wanted from the people management aspect. I now wanted to go back and understand how things are actually set up from scratch, right? How do all of these things come together, and how does a company even function, right? So if I joined, let's say, another big company, I knew that I wouldn't have gotten this chance, right? So I was very clear that okay, either I'm going to some startup, or I'm not going to any other big company, right? I didn't want to join a middle stage company because that's where the company starts growing and it has crossed this setting up scratch phase, right? Setting up from scratch phase. So I was very clear that I wanted to learn how a company is set up, what does marketing mean, what does PR mean, what does product mean, how do you even search for a product market fit, how do you how do you think about investments, how do you think about different technologies that are out there, right? And I wanted to make this transition, and the founders, one of the founder Ankit, who has also been a director at CoinSwitch, like one of the first 5 employees, he has been my close friend since Amazon as well, and I admire him technically, and I trusted whatever Ankit and the co-founder Prakhar are doing. It's good, right? So I understood the concept. There were a lot of trade-offs. I'm going to talk about them later on. But yeah, all in all, I wanted to shift gears. I wanted to try this out. I just wanted to know, whoever asked this question, does this answer whatever you are trying to seek?
I
Okay,
think
cool.
we the answer,
Yeah,
but yeah, I think we can go with uh, the people's opinion,
yeah.
and most it's learning new skills that people has chosen the most.
Yeah, cool. So this is small numbers, so we can't maybe generalize it, but I can tell you from the larger surveys that we have done, at least within the scope of Amazon for a few teams, right, asking these same questions. You can consider that as a fairly big data set of about 9 to 10,000 people. Um, so most of the people, most of in fact, most of us, when we are starting out our journey, right, we think of career growth just as a promotion. But when you actually look at a mix of demographics, when you look at varied demographics, when you look at what does career growth actually mean for folks, you would see that the results are surprising. As in, not really surprising if you were if you are thinking from a bigger perspective, but the percentages were like the highest rated, or rather the topmost result, was opportunities to work on new inventions and technologies. Then came opportunities to work on projects with greater influence. Then came promotion to next level, and learning new skills was very close to it as well. And then others. But yeah, so what I'm trying to convey with this poll, or rather asking this, is basically opening up everyone's mind to think that career growth can happen in multiple aspects, right? Multiple directions, and it may mean a, a myriad things for different people, right? So when I talk about career growth, what I have in mind, what you have in mind, is going to be different, right? We can lay out the core frameworks, but you have to realize that your journey is going to be unique. You can always try to take inspiration from people. You can always try to follow some people, learn good things, but always remember that uh, a cut copy paste is not going to work for everyone, right? You can see a very successful person try to follow everything they do, but it's not necessary that it will work for you as well, right? So that uniqueness is there. uh, so now coming to segueing from this, right, to what I actually wanted to talk about is, just give me a sec, types of career growth. So this is very important. And this is where I think a lot of us are not very clear on. We see some of the things as taboos. We see some of the things as not okay being in career growth. But I just wanted to run very quickly into these types of career growths. This will also answer some of the questions. I think one or two of the questions in the chat that came in. Uh, let's start with the lateral, right? Lateral career growth is whenever you just want to make a shift from one team to another, one organization to another, or one company to another, but your role is mostly the same. Your roles and responsibilities are mostly the same. This is probably one of the most frequent type of career growth moves that we see, right? People very frequently change companies, people very frequently change organizations. So this is just like, okay, I'm finding some new interesting work there, but it's in my area of expertise. It's in what I do. So let's explore what lateral, and this is what career growth is. Lateral career growth is exploratory. Exploratory is when you try to you try different. You just want to try something new, right? You want to try out different roles. You want to try out different skills. So, for example, when I was an SDE and I was trying to become an SDM, that was kind of an exploratory move for me, right? And a lot of people do that. We in fact, in our tech industry, one of the good things that I am talking specifically about tech here, one of the things that happening really great is that we see gates of opportunities opening up for everyone. This old concept of people having to complete some certain degrees to acquire those roles is going away. And people are acquiring these skills of becoming, let's say, a program manager, a product manager, a PMT or TPM or SDM on the fly as well, right? And they are being given these chances. So a lot of exploration is happening as well. And it can also mean that you don't necessarily have to stick to the same field. In fact, you may have seen that people are making shifts from sometimes software to design or software to maybe totally a different thing, right? I have a lot of friends who just directly change industries as well. So that's kind of an exploratory move. Vertical is quite common. Vertical is promo. It's self-explanatory. So I'm going to move ahead. Realignment. And this is where I come to uh, I link one of the questions, right? So Ramya asked, I'm returning to work after a break of 10 years. Any suggestions from my experience? Uh, so first of all, Ramya, I'll try to answer it the best I can from my experience. I've never had a break of 10 years. In fact, I don't have a career of 10 years. Uh, but this is where realignment comes in, right? Realignment uh, is commonly put in a very negative light. Uh, Being openly transparent, people very frequently call it down leveling. But I don't think that's the right word for it because, as I said, your life incidents, your life preferences, and your career are very closely tied to each other. Realignment basically means that taking a step back, thinking about your set of roles and responsibilities, what's happening around you, and then maybe deciding that, okay, I'm not ready for this set of these kind of responsibilities yet. And or there is something else going on. I'm gonna probably take a step back, or I'm gonna probably try out maybe level lower compared to what I am being offered, right? But I'm not saying that Ramya, you should do this. What I'm saying is in most of such cases, what happens is when you're returning after a break of 10 years, you still need to have some time to ramp up, right? And if you're returning after a 10 years, depending on which industry you are joining, it can also mean that your ramp up extends from or getting in the mode takes somewhere from 6 months to 1 year. It totally depends on how you are entering back, right? And how much time you're planning to dedicate or what are the kind of expectations there. So this is usually one of the options, right? Saying that, okay, because I'm entering this into after a long time, maybe let's not uh, think that, okay, I left it at this level. Now I have to start either at this level or the higher level because that's very challenging, right? You can probably say that, okay, let me start at a role which has maybe slightly lesser responsibilities for now, but then I'll pick up the pace, right? Uh, Ramya, I just wanted to know this. Does this kind of hint give you a hint of what can be one of the options? And if you have any follow up questions, please put that in the chat as well. Uh, Okay, thanks, Amaya. And if you have any follow-up questions, right, please feel free to ask. So that's realignment. Enrichment is something that happens on a day-to-day basis, right? Whatever you and I are doing, whatever we are learning on the go, that's enrichment, right? And enrichment also leads to some kind of other career growth. So don't think that these are exclusive, right? This is at a point in time. You can always take different type of career growth at different points in time. And then the last one is exit. Exit means that uh, and we have to understand that exit we usually see it as attrition, sometimes seen it as in a negative light, but exit is something that's very important. If you have realized that what is it that something that you're aiming to achieve can't happen in the current role, right? So you either exit the team, you either exit the company, or exit the organization, right? Basically this is mainly when you realize that, okay, I have to try something which is not possible in this role, maybe just let me try something outside, right? And that is why we see a lot of talent where a lot of attrition when people have somewhere, let's say, kind of hit a wall in their current role, right? So as if you were to just look at a graph of a career growth, it would be somewhere something like an S curve, right? You are slowly picking up, then you suddenly, and this is where you are learning, right? And then you will hit a steep curve, and then you will again you'll reach probably the new level, and then you will again have this learning flat line, right? So different things can happen in different moments, but always think that it's not a consistent thing that you will always be in the same situation. Uh, I'm going to take a pause. I just want to ask, is there any follow-up question on types of career growth? Okay, I see a comment from Ramya. I mean, anyone who came across back after wave, how they are supporting returning workforce. Yeah, wh- this is this is a great question, Ramya. In fact, I think I would just like to add this. It's unfortunate, but we still see that the uh, how our society functions, right? Women are still, or female workers are still more impacted by what happens at home or what happens in their life more than maybe male workers. And I'm not trying to say that okay, male workers have no impact. I'm just trying to say that how it happens. There are certain points in life where women obviously face a more setback or kind of impact, and and yes, there are, I would say that the programs for returning workforce highly depend on what kind of an organization you are working with, right? So when I at least used to work at Amazon, there's a program where any women who have taken a break from their career and are returning after a long time, they are given special attention, or rather they are given the special leeway to okay ramp up, and I forgot the name of that program, but making sure that they are not feeling like okay, they have missed something out, right? All the support is given to them in terms of their management, in terms of their peers. So I would say that it largely depends on what kind of an organization, what kind of people and manager you are working with, right? uh, Moving on to the next thing, right? Now career growth is it's a time consuming process, right? And sometimes we are very confused about who owns what. Let me give you a very clear example, and this is something that I've done myself. This is a mistake that I've done myself in my initial years of career. So when I was working as an SD in Amazon, uh, I was just doing my work, right? I was just doing my work, hoping or thinking that okay, my manager will take care of my promotion, right? Uh, the thing is, the reality is everyone is very busy, right? So you can't expect that okay, people will automatically take care of things without doing anything. So for example, what I was thinking was okay, I'll get promoted. I'm doing so much work. It had been 2 years already, and when I talked to my manager for the first time that okay, now I've done so much work, now am I somewhere close to my promotion? Trust me, this was the first time we had that conversation, and I realized that there was so many gaps, right? Because my expectations and my manager's expectations were totally different, right? So the thing is, don't just think that okay, somebody is gonna take care of your career growth for you. At the end of the day, I just want to put it out there, irrespective of which company you are in, irrespective of which career you are in, your career growth is owned by you. You are the owner of your career growth. You will have to take steps to make sure that it is happening at the pace and the expectations that you want, right? So that is why I have this slide, which is very important to make a boundary between who owns what, right? So as on the left hand side, you can see that you own the process. When I say process, this means that you own thinking, you own thinking about the process, you own triggering the process, taking it forward as well, right? And this is not just a one time thing. You own the career growth process as long as your career is going on, right? The second thing is being self aware. This is kind of important. I'm going to talk about one of the frameworks later down the slide on how we can know about ourselves more, what are our strengths, weaknesses, interests, or disinterests. That is also important. Networking is important, right? Networking is important because not only it opens up more visibility, it is also important because it opens up new opportunities, it opens up diverse perspectives, right? So when you are networking, you are getting to know a lot of people, you are getting to know their thoughts, you are getting to know different ways of doing things. So networking in your growth, getting to know more people, getting to know more things that are happening in your let's say in your vicinity, that is your responsibility. uh, Sharing your aspirations, this is one thing that in my experience I've seen happening the least, right? So whenever you are thinking about career growth, a lot of time what happens is that stays in our mind, right? We are thinking about it, but we never share it with anyone. We never talk about it with anyone. So you have to make sure that you are sharing your aspirations. Where do you want to proceed? In how much time frame are you looking to proceed in that direction? Sharing these aspirations with your manager or whoever your supervisor is very important. Otherwise, they would never come to know what is it that you are setting out for or what is it that you are aiming for. And lastly, developing skills. This is pretty obvious, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it. Now let's come to the manager side. Uh, it is very important for manager to provide a feedback, right? Provide a consider continuous ongoing feedback. Feedback shouldn't be a thing which happens once in a year. Obviously there are yearly reviews, but that's a cumulative feedback. That's a 360-degree feedback from a lot of your peers, lot of your stakeholders and customers, right? But this feedback, providing continuous feedback based on your projects or instances, that is your manager's responsibility on a frequent basis, right? One of the most common ways of doing this is, let's say, having this in one-on-one, right? One-on-one agenda topic, which we usually do, let's say, either fortnightly or once in a month, depends on how your cadence is set, right? The next thing is manager owns identifying opportunities for you, because ultimately the work division and what the team is doing, what you are going to do is obviously, a lot of it comes from the manager's contributions, right? And they have to understand what are the right opportunities for you and where you are trying to proceed. Enabling network connections. So for I'm gonna give this as an example, right? When I was a SGM at Amazon, a lot of people wanted to learn, like at least my team wanted to learn a lot of things from different people, and or they would just say that I want to learn about this. Uh, then then it was my responsibility to try to understand who has this right set of expertise, right? Or who is this person who can help this person out in this particular direction. It was my responsibility to at least put my team in touch with the people that they were looking to get mentorship or networking from, right? Second, lastly, being a reality check. This is one of the most important things. I'm going to say that it is our responsibility to make sure that we are getting the right feedback from our manager as well. But it is all the more crucial for a manager to give the right picture of where you stand, the correct picture of where you stand, what is feasible, what is not feasible. Uh, and lastly, providing direction and support goes without saying, quite obvious. Uh, I hope this makes it clear on who owns what, right? And this is not going to change uh, in terms of where you are working, right? This is from a very big perspective, and this is something that holds true almost all of the times, right? Uh, I'm gonna move ahead. I'm gonna take a pause here, right? Because we are moving on to the next section of our presentation. Before that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through the list of questions once again that came in the beginning and see what all I've answered, right? Uh, how to make right career decisions, I'll get onto it soon, in a moment. Career growth is in corporate sector or business also. Okay, career. The way I'm interpreting this question is that if you are running a business, is there any career growth? I'm not sure. Or are you asking? Uh, Pavan, can you specify this question a bit? Would you mind clarifying this a bit? A little off topic, but can you? Uh, Oh yeah, I'll definitely talk about Metasky at the end. Uh, but I just wanted to know, Pawan, if you could clarify your question. Meanwhile, you do that. Uh, how to succeed as a software development engineer from different background? Slightly off topic, slightly bit specific, but I'll try to answer that in the end. I'm trying to see what are the general questions that I can answer. I answered Ramya's question. To grow in one company or keep switching. Uh, Depends. Okay, let's do this. A lot of questions are coming in how to proceed in the right career, right direction, right? I'm gonna finish my content and I'm gonna talk very dedicatedly about this, how to make the right trade-offs. Meanwhile, invention and technology, yeah, I think I think we have answered pretty much everything until now, other than this, how to pick up the right direction. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move ahead. Hafsa, feel free to stop me if there are any other questions you would like me to answer.
Yeah, we do have one question from YouTube Live, which says, we have two questions actually. So Deepak asked when to consider switching in terms of tech.
when to consider switching in terms of tech. Uh, Deepak, if you can tell me when you say switching from tech, as in one tech from another tech, or are you saying switching from a non-tech career to a tech career? Doesn't matter. It will. I'll try to answer both. So switching from one tech to another tech, I would say that how should I put it? In the long run, the specific tech is not gonna matter. Your field is definitely going to matter. This is like saying that okay, I am pursuing a computer science. Should my career be more JavaScript based or Java based, right? Um, to be honest, it wouldn't matter because te- language is not, or the specific tech is not something that's holding us back, right? And tech is always going to be evolving. So even if you hold one of the tech today's, one of the specific tech today's, tomorrow it's going to die down or become obsolete, right? So it won't depend on with whether you are working on one tech or another tech. It's obviously good if you still have understanding of a tech. You think that okay, this is your strength, and you try to become an expert in that. That's okay. Now I'm gonna address the second part because the first part is not that complex, right? I think maybe you were asking about the second part, which was shifting from non-tech career to a tech career. Now, this is a very broad question. I uh, if I were ha- if I had specific field that you are currently in, non-tech field, and a specific tech that you are trying to switch to, maybe I would have been able to answer it better. But I'll anyway give it a shot. Uh, it's very important to understand what is the tech that you are jumping into if you're not from a tech background, right? And when I say let's first define these terms. When we talk about tech and non-tech, I am assuming right now, for now, the tech means that uh, uh, very specifically talking about, let's say, the computer science tech, right? Let's say you want to get into that, but you have no experience of getting into you have no experience of computer science and you are in a non-tech background. How can you jump the fastest from here to the computer science background? Uh, I want to take it a step back and first say that you have to definitely determine that this is something that you are willing to try, right? It's not something that you are trying out because everyone else is doing it. It's something that okay, you have understood why you want to do it, and you have fair good reasons for doing it. Now, at least in my terms, if you are jumping into a computer science tech, the easiest way to do it as of today is in the web technologies, right? Or web app or mobile app. But yeah, there are different ways to go about it. Hafsa, I think with this information, I can only answer this much.
Yeah, I think that works. I guess Deepak, I think you got answer from what, from in terms of tech or maybe switching into the tech. So I think we have another question, and it says if someone is just starting their career, how should they go about it?
Oh, interesting. That's what we are going to talk about. Yeah, how to start acting on career growth. That's the section we are going to cover now. And I'll start basically when I'm developing this presentation. I've assumed that you are in fact somewhere in the range of, let's say, 0 to 5. My demographics is mostly in 0 to 10 years of experience who have never ever tried this framework out, right? So if you're starting out, or whether you have 2 years experience, 3 years experience, doesn't matter. This next thing is very generic, and it will give you a direction on how to do that. Uh, cool. Anything else, Hafsa, for now?
No, only these two questions were
Okay,
asked.
cool. Let's get into it, right? This is probably going to be the most interesting part of this. How to start acting on career growth, which is basically the question that was just asked. Uh, so uh, if you have to start on a career growth, you have to first make a plan, right? You can't just start on a career growth ki, yeah, I'm going to go and do all of these things today. That's not how it works. Uh, definitely have to plan things out. Now, let's get into it, right? So let's call that plan a career growth plan, right? That is the simplest thing we can call it. Whenever you are looking to start on thinking about career growth or acting on career growth, we have to make a plan, and we are going to call it career growth plan, which is CGP. Now, what is a career growth plan and why do we need it, right? So, as I said, right, as I said a few minutes back, that we all have these career growth plans, we have these ideas which we have running in our mind, right? As long as these things are not written down somewhere, as long as you have not thought very deeply about it, trust me, uh, you're not going to get a clear picture, right? You're going to have this a meshed wall of thoughts into how should I proceed about my career, right? So this plan, I would say this plan, in fact, is a documented uh, record of what you're trying to do, right? And I'm I'm laying a lot of stress on documented, because if you have not written it down, if you have not documented it, this means that there is a high chance that you have also not answered all the necessary questions yourself, right? You have not basically asked yourself the second level or the third level questions, right? So it is a documented plan on how you're going to move ahead, right? And why it is important is uh, because when you make this plan, not only you are noting down what you want to achieve, you're trying to think how you're also going to think how you're going to achieve that. You're trying to decide, okay, what I'm going to do next, right, for the next few years. It does not have to start with what I'm going to do in 20 years. We may not have that picture, right? It may also mean that, okay, I can foresee, let's say, 5 years of my career, for example, right? This is a very common interview question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? So you can think about 5 years and see that, okay, my plan for 5 years looks something like this on a broad perspective, right? This is where I'll start from. And now I'm going to go deep down into it. So you're going to think very hard about it. You're going to make some things very specific, right? You're going to get some action items out of that. So that is very important when writing it down, making sure that you are clear on what you want. And then when you maintain a running copy of it, right? When you are discussing this plan very frequently and updating it very frequently and discussing it with your manager, you're gonna make sure that there is accountability and ownership, right? You're setting yourself to some accountability. You're holding your manager accountable for few things, and you know who owns what, right? The things that I talked about previously, you have a very carefully written record of, okay, these are the next set of action items, or these are the things that I have to do versus my manager has to do, and so on, right? So this is why this plan is very important, and it helps bridge these gaps that we are not able to see from point A to point B when we start writing it down, and we have sort of reached a good state there, right? Uh, Now, what happens now? You have thought about, you know about career growth plan, right? But then you would think about, okay, I know about career growth plan, but what next? How do I even start? How does this help, right? So the thing is, sorry, I'm first going to talk about what this is. And then I'm going to talk about this, how you started. So what is a career growth plan, right? It's an ongoing process. It's not a static checklist. You can't say that, okay, yaar, मैंने साल में I've created this checklist once in a year, and now I'm good, right? This checklist is not going to change. If we are thinking this way, then this means that we are not proceeding ahead, right? Because as and when you hit the milestones that you set yourself in the current iteration, you're going to obviously put on some new milestones, right? So it's an ongoing process. It's a forward thinking process. It's not like, okay, I'm just going to think about present. No, it's a forward thinking process. When I say a forward thinking process, at least let's say you're trying to think 6 months to one year down the line, at least, right? A good career growth plan, in my opinion, would look at least somewhere 5 to 10 years down the line, but it depends on which situation you are in. It's not one size fits all. I talked about this earlier. You can't just copy paste someone else's career growth or their trajectory and apply it. Um, I would recommend that whenever you are thinking about a career growth plan exercise, you try to do it 3 or 4 times a year, at least once per quarter, right? Because anything less than a quarter maybe is too little time frame to understand what you have achieved, how far you have come on a bigger picture, right? If you are doing a career growth plan every 2 weeks, it's like you're not going to see considerable change, right? So you have to take this quarter timeline at least to understand, okay, I was here. I had set out these goals for myself. I've accomplished so many of them, right? Uh, it's not once a year event. It's it also lists down what are the action items you need to take, as I said, right? It's not a performance feedback. This is very important to realize. Whenever you are having a career growth discussion, it has to be separate from the performance review that you are getting, right? Uh, I would talk about this going ahead as well. But whenever a career growth discussion is happening, or whenever you are thinking about it, it's not about how I have executed this project or how I have done this. It's not a performance feedback. It's about how the long term picture will look, how you're going to make it there, what are the short term milestones, right? It's not about a specific feedback. So just take care of that. And I'm saying this very explicitly because when you're having these discussions, you have to maintain this boundary that you don't start focusing on performance feedback a lot, and in the same way your manager as well, right? Okay, there's something, just give me a sec. uh, Aman says, to get into big companies like Amazon, how to build DSA skills. I tried practicing some other coding platforms but unable to learn it. uh, okay, I'll try to answer this in the end, right? Very specific question, so I'll come to it later. Now now we know what career growth plan is, right? uh, uh, how does the process start? That's very important. So you have to start from somewhere, right? So now there are three phases. So let's say this is your first discussion, you have never done this discussion ever, you're going to start on your career growth plan today, or maybe next week, or whenever, right? So before your first discussion, that is what you're going to do with your manager, you have to understand yourself very clearly, and you have to draft your career growth plan, at least what it means in your terms, right? Or what you understand about your career, what you envision about your career. So that is why the first step here is you have to draft a CGP, the career growth plan. Now I know I said it very easily. That's why once I've discussed this process, I'm going to talk about a few things or a few frameworks you can use to start drafting your CGP. Okay, I'll come into that into detail in next few slides. Then once you have drafted that CGP, you have to set an appointment, right? You own setting up that first appointment, right? You own calling it out to your manager, or you own somehow taking this first step, that okay, our discussion is happening around this, right? And this discussion is not a part of, let's say, your regular sync up, or let's say not just it doesn't become a work related discussion. You have to very specifically set aside a time saying that okay, hey boss, or hey whoever, I want to discuss about my career growth and how it looks like, or how we should proceed ahead. Can we spend, let's say, XYZ time on so and so day? Right? Just talk to your manager about it. Set this appointment. It gives that kick, right? It gives that kick start, and you have actually taken a tangible step to have that discussion now. Be ready with questions when you write your CGP, right? You're gonna realize that there are so many things that you don't know or you are confused about, right? So always have that list handy before going into the discussion, that okay, if I have to come out of these discussion, these are the top key takeaways I want to take. And that will probably be, or most definitely be, by being ready with the questions or doubts that you have. Evaluate your strengths and growth areas, right? Because when you are thinking of your career growth in a longer term, you have to know what your strengths are, what your growth areas are, right? You probably wouldn't want to make your career growth on, or your career on something you know that it's not your strength and you are not excited about, for example. So you have to very clearly know that what are these strengths and weaknesses or growth areas. And we are also going to talk about this framework, which is a part of drafting the CGP as well. Consider your career aspirations, right? This is an important aspect. Just don't think that okay, career is a very unidirectional thing, as I was telling you earlier, right? There are different types of career growth. Don't think that your aspiration is only limited to or your view should only be limited to okay, what you are doing right now, right? It doesn't have to be a derivative of that. It has to be what is it that you are aspiring to achieve, right? And obviously, whenever we set some aspirations, we set some goals, right? You may have heard about this very popular thing called smart goals, right? Smart is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So when you are setting these aspirations, make sure that your aspirations are at least realistic and you have decided a time frame for it. Because otherwise, career aspiration can be anything, right? Somebody could say that I want to be Elon Musk, for example. uh, that's not going to help much anyone, right? Now once you have done this prerequisite exercise, you have to understand what is it that you're going to do during the discussion. And this is where uh, some things are also dependent on how, what kind of a manager you have. But you can obviously have control of this discussion, or you can obviously set expectations for this discussion, right? You can, whenever you are going into that discussion, and I'm saying this for both the parties, for the individual contributors here and for the managers here as well, right? In this discussion, you have to you have to be open to possibilities, right? You can't just have a very narrow, let's say, adamant view of okay, nahi yaar, I am going to do this if it's my way or the highway. It's not like that, right? You have to be open to different possibilities, different things that can come from that discussion. You have to be ready for an honest talk, right? You can't try to hide a few things. You can't try to hide your strengths, weaknesses, and then have this discussion, right? The basic necessity of this entire process is you're very honest with yourself, you're very honest with your manager as well. uh, Come up with ideas. This is responsibility of both the parties, but you can also come up with ideas. Let's say you have thought that, okay, I want to proceed in my career in this direction, then these are the ways I can do it, and discuss those ideas and the possibility of actually executing those ideas with your manager, right? And before you are exiting this meeting, when I would say that what the best thing that you can do before getting out of that meeting is to make sure that you are setting the next instance of this discussion. Because the moment you step out of it and you have not set up the next instance, trust me, it's gonna get lost. I've seen this happening. Career growth is not something. These discussions are not something that. Uh, how should I put it? Uh, in our engineering mindset, we sometimes don't lay a lot of focus on these kind of discussions, right? We are wanting to solve problems and move ahead, and we don't worry about writing documentations and career growth and whatnot. So make sure that you're setting up this meeting, because so that you also know that, okay, this is going to come and I have to be ready for it. Now once you have done that, after you go back, you have to obviously think, reflect back on the discussion. You have to see what needs changing, what needs revision. You have to start trying to build your reputation in networking, as I told earlier. And again, based on the feedback, you have to reassess your career aspirations, right? You may have come to know some real new facts, or maybe some new inputs from your manager, or as you reflected back. One thing I would like to advise everyone, uh, I would say that whenever you're having this discussion, at least send a MOM or minutes of meeting out once that discussion has happened, right? And in an ideal scenario, I would send a minutes of a meeting in a format saying that, okay, hey boss, we discussed all of this today. We have these action items on me and you, basically all the action items, and these are the tentative dates. And here's the date for our next meeting, right? Uh, what this does is, you always have this running record of key what we discussed, right? It's very easy to forget what happened in the last discussion. It's very easy to not have this accountability. For example, and these can happen in very, I would say, cases where either unintentionally or people have malicious intents, where let's say something was promised to you and it didn't happen, but you don't have any record of this, right? So in terms of accountability, in terms of record, just in terms of making sure that you have it documented, and you also know, okay, what is it that you promised. All of these things should be in a documented place, right? So so this is how you start about this process, and this process is going to remain the same for the next iterations, right? So this process doesn't differ from whether it's your first meeting, second meeting, 10th meeting, and so on. These three things, what is required before the meeting, what is required during the meeting, and after, remains the same. So for the person who asked, how do I even start this process, right? I hope this gives you a bit of an idea of how you start doing that process, or how you start following that process. uh, I'm going to take a pause, because next I'm going to introduce you to some frameworks that could help on drafting this CGP, or at least thinking about this career growth plan, right? Um, what should be, yeah, definitely. So Altaf asks, can you give some of the examples of what should be one of the milestones? Uh, Altaf, I can say that, okay, consider this as, uh, let me say that your 1 year goal is, I want to become an SG2, right? Because I'm very close to software development, so I'm going to take that example, and I have fair amount of experience in this type of career growth as well. So let's say you say that, okay, in 1 to 2 years I want to become an SG2, and this is your goal. This is one of your career growth goals. Now, what are going to be the milestones, right? And this is where you have to understand, what does being an SD2 mean? I'm an SD1 today. What does being an SD2 mean? SD2 may mean that you are not only operating independently, but you are also coaching a few members of the team. You are mentor for a few members of the team. It may mean that you are doing the code reviews for the team. You are doing design discussions, or for example, let's say you're not only doing low level design, but you're also doing high level design, right? So it depends on what is the goal that you have set for yourself, right? And then you can break it down into these milestones. You can say that one of my milestone is maybe when I'm able to confidently mentor, let's say, an intern or a person in my team or a junior in my team, right? That can be one of the milestone. This is for a goal which is like, let's say, 1 to 2 years. But now let's say you want to say that I want to be let's say a senior manager, right? A senior manager somewhere. Now what would your milestones look like? And let's say you are an SD2 as of today. Your milestone may look like in the form of, from an SD2 I want to be an SD lead. From SD lead I want to become a software development manager, and probably from there I want to go from senior software development manager. Now this is a bird's eye level view, right? Now you can also break this down further. So it depends on what is the scope of the goal that you are setting, right? So maybe Altaf, what you can do is, if you tell me one of the example goals, I can tell you what can be the different milestones, for example, right? So feel free to type that out as well. But I hope this gives you a bit of an idea. So what I can do is I can give you my example. Uh, my example in terms of I wanted to be able to become software development manager, right? So what were my milestones? My milestones were very influenced by what does actually becoming a software development manager mean, right? At least in Amazon. So my milestones were that okay, I should be able to promote so many people, right? Grow so many people. I should be able to get these many projects done, or I should be able to learn these specific skills, right? I should be able to learn how the promotion documents are written, how the product documents are written, right? These were different milestones for me, and it's hugely gonna vary on the goal that you are deciding, right? So I hope this gives you a bit of an idea, right? um, Now that we have talked about how this process goes, let's talk about CGP, which is the most important aspect, right? How do we even uh, think or go about writing the CGP? Cool, Altaf, thanks. Uh, so CGP is career growth plan, right? It's obviously going to be a document. I'm not going to impose or I'm not going to recommend any of a particular any of the particular formats to do it, or any of the particular tools, or as in editing tools to do it. Uh, at the end of the day, these are just tools. You can use anything that you want. You can write it in any way that you want or track it, uh, as long as you are clear on these frameworks, or you are clear on the direction, right? So I'm going to talk about those very uh, basic principles basis, right? I'm not going to talk about the format of the document or the tool that you should be using. So let's talk about the two frameworks. The two frameworks are mainly for understanding and evaluating yourself, right? Whenever you are creating a career growth plan or a CGP, you would basically try to understand yourself, right? Where do you stand? Where do you want to go? What you are doing? What is your strength? What is your weakness? What motivates you? What demotivates you, right? Uh, I'm just going to do a quick check. Are you folks able to hear me? Because I lost Hafsa's video. Okay, cool. Thanks, Ramya. Um, so let's talk about oh, hey, Hafsa, you are back. I thought my connection had some problem. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the first framework. The first framework is the strengths motivation framework, and this framework I definitely use a lot, trying to understand what is it that I'm going to do in the long term, right? Uh, as it is pretty much clear from the slides, it's a 2x2 grid. It has four quadrants. I have numbered them for you as well so that we can talk on the same reference. The quadrants, the x-axis is strength and weakness, and the y-axis is motivates and demotivates. So the first quadrant that you see is are the things that are your strengths and that motivate you. The second quadrant are the things that you are not very strong about, or you don't have an expertise in, but they still motivate you. You would still like to learn them or do them. Third quadrant is there's something that is your strength, but you don't really want to do it, right? And the fourth one is it is neither your strength, it is a weakness, nor does it motivate you, right? So there are four quadrant metrics, 2x2 metrics. Uh, what and while I explain it, what I'm request all of you to do is maybe on your just laptop, or if you have a piece of pen and paper, just for yourself, try writing this out, right? Try writing things in these four quadrants, right? So I'm going to now talk about each of these quadrants and how you can use it to create a career growth plan. So the first one is strengths and motivations, right? So strengths and motivates mean that something you are good at and it's motivating you. This is definitely going to be one of the things that you can think of making a long term career in, right? Because it's your strength, it's motivating you at this point of time. And do keep in mind that, as I said, right, it's an ever evolving, ever continuous process. So it's it can happen that something that is your strength and something that motivates you today moves to a different quarter tomorrow, right? So I'm talking about this point in time. Let's say today you are making a career growth plan. So this picture is as of today. So, so for example, for me, I'm going to tie it up to how it related to me, right? When I was trying to do this. So, strengths and motivation. For me, my strength was working with people, and it used to motivate me as well. I knew that I could help people grow in their career. I could manage tasks. I could run a team because I had done this. I had a small amount of experience doing this in my college. Uh, and slowly I came to know that this was my strength as well, and it felt in the first quarter, right? So this is what led me to take this career, which is the software development manager, right? And there were a lot of other things in here as well. For example, if you are a software development manager, you would like to have a bit of a good communication skills as well. You would like to have both verbal and written. You would like to have how should I put it? Some stakeholder management capabilities, for example. So it depends on what are your strengths and what motivate you. So that was definitely working in my favor. The second quadrant, which was motivates but is a weakness, uh, I'm going to give you an example of this, and this, in fact, was one of the very big things. I think somebody asked, "How did you shift from Amazon to Metasky?" Right? There were some things which I was very motivated about. I wanted to do them, but I was not getting a chance to do them within Amazon, right? And I wanted to learn them, but I these were not my expertise. I was definitely interested in learning about them. So, for example, I was a software development manager, right? But I was not a product manager. I didn't know how to start. While I had some experience, but I didn't know how to start thinking of a product from scratch, right? I was interested in knowing how uh, how do you even create a brand for your organization? How do you even create a marketing strategy? I wanted to learn all these things, but these were my weaknesses. It's pretty clear that uh, I was not gonna able to achieve this in Amazon, and hence, as I told you about one of the types of career growth, I made an exit to learn them. Right. Uh, Third is okay. Before I move on to third, motivates and weakness is something you have to realize that. There are gonna be things here which are easy to learn and which are very challenging to learn, right? So something that you are trying so there will be a few things which you will be able to turn from the second quadrant to the first quadrant, as in it was a weakness earlier and now it has become a strength, and you're obviously motivated about it. But there are a few things which you don't have to be very stringent about, right? It's okay. It's saying that as long as you recognize that, okay, I know I want to learn this, but it's not very easy to learn. It may take me a lot of time to acquire this skill, right? For example, if you're trying to pursue a computer science career and coding is your weakness, right? You can't expect to learn coding within a month. It's going to take a lot of time to become your strength, maybe a year or so, right? In a particular technology. So you have to, and as long as you understand this, you have a path to make it into a strength, and you recognize this about yourself, and it's not a blind spot. It's okay. Few things are going to get go happen soon. Few things are going to take some time, right? Always try to uh, so what will happen is, as a result, either it will move to quadrant one, or sometimes what happens is you try so hard but you're not able to learn it, and then it starts demotivating you, in fact, right? So it then goes from the second quadrant to fourth quadrant. The moment it goes from second quadrant to fourth quadrant, I'm going to talk about fourth quadrant. But if it is moving from second to fourth quadrant, I would say that don't try to spend your time, a lot of time on it, right? uh, because you just have to accept there are few things we can learn, there are few things we cannot learn. Let's be realistic, right? I'm not demotivating anyone, I'm just saying that always be realistic about what can be achieved in what time frame. Coming to the third quadrant, which is strength and demotivates, uh, let me give you an example here, right? Uh, there can be a specific skill that you have, but somehow it's demotivating you, right? And when does this happen? And I can tell you without a doubt, most of the time this happens that when when you have acquired a particular skill, now you're repeatedly doing it, right? You're doing it again and again. Now because you're good at it, you are being expected to do this, but you're now bored out of your mind, right? You can't do it anymore. So it's your strength, but you are demotivated, you don't want to do it, right? These are the things you should try to see how I can move out of my uh, court from. Like, how can I just teach somebody else to do it, right? Because you are an expert here. You don't want to be spending a lot of time on it, because this is where you're going to create time to learn the skills that will help you in your long-term career growth, right? Which is probably the quadrant 1 or 2, right? So just I would say that try to see, there will be a lot of people who can learn this skill and who this will prove you beneficial to, but try to save your time there. Fourth quadrant, at the end of the day, we are all humans, right? We can't be good and motivated about everything. uh, there's a quadrant which most of the times uh, happens if I would just go ahead and say it. Probably we are, if this is a majority of your job role right now, if you're lying in four quadrant with a lot of responsibilities or the work that you do, this means that you are probably not at the right place, right? You have to think about, okay, how should I proceed ahead from here? Is this even the right thing to do, right? So for example, uh, if you and I would relate this to the question that was asked, like, I want to make a transition into a tech career, for example, but I my coding is not great, for example, and I'm not even excited about it. I And if I'm still in this, I somehow have cracked this computer science job. I've still somehow learned it for once, but it's still not motivating me. It's gonna stab me in the back later on, right? You're gonna get demotivated one day or the other, and it's gonna turn out to your weakness. This means that you are not gonna be able to grow in your career, at least in these particular areas, right? So try to really think whether what you are doing is the right thing, if things are falling in the fourth quadrant, right? So I'm just going to give a quick summary and tie it to how, what should you do when you're drafting a CGP, right? So list out the things that you are doing today, list out the things that you want to do, see which quadrants they lie in, right? And as I said, one and two are the most likely candidates of you pursuing your career growth direction in, right? Sometimes things in three may also turn uh, into one or two, depends. It can go anywhere, but as I said, right, one and two are going to be your best friends. uh, I want to take a pause here, because I know I've spoken a lot about this framework, so I wanted to know if there are any questions or doubts around this.
So, well, Weber, we have one
Yeah.
question from Neil. And Deepak asked, can manager be replaced with some other mentor or no mentor at all?
Can
So,
manager be replaced with?
some mentor or no mentor at
Got
all?
it. Got it. Good question. So you have to understand that these roles are different, right? Manager is someone who works with you on a daily basis. A mentor may not. So let's first classify these two roles, and it does not have to be either or. So I would give you my example, right? I had a manager. Everyone has a manager most of the times, and I also had, outside of my manager, I had two different mentors in Amazon, within Amazon. Why did I have two mentors? Was because I wanted to learn two separate skills, and I realized that this person is really good at this skill, and this person is really good at this skill, right? So you can always have managers and mentors, right? But you can't replace either of them. You can't say that, okay, I'm not going to talk about my career growth with manager. I'm just going to talk about it with my mentor, right? It's going to give you some ideas, but it's not going to probably give you some actionable things, because at the end of the day, it's you and your manager who are working closely to decide your career path, right? To move you along further in the career path. At the same time, you can't say that, okay, if I have manager, I don't have to worry about my mentor or getting a mentor. uh, and this is something that I wanted to tell everyone. It's very easy to get involved in your day-to-day activity and just not think about having a mentor at all. And I also realize that this may not be a very obvious culture in every organization also, right? So yeah, mentor is someone who's going to guide you in where you are going, who's going to probably mentorship. The way it works is mostly in a way that you have a very clear agenda, you have a very clear goal on what you want to achieve from that mentorship, right? Mentorship is not something that you just enter it because, okay, this person looks good, I'm just going to become his mentee. It's not like that. When you're thinking of a mentorship, you're probably saying that, hey, I see that I want to learn this, or this is something that I want to know more about, or this is an area where I want more feedback or guidance, and hence I am seeking out this mentor who can probably help me do this, right? So whenever you're beginning a mentorship, you're probably defining a success criteria or an exit criteria, right? That's under your control, but maybe not so in terms of manager, right? You can't say that, okay, I'm gonna, basically, this is not the kind of a situation that works in a manager way. Uh, so yeah, just reiterating, you can obviously have both. Don't try to replace one with the other. uh, Both of these roles can play some part of the other role in some capacity, but they are definitely not interchangeable or just one to be pursued. Does that answer Deepak's question?
Yeah, I guess that answers the
Cool.
question.
Deepak, if you have any follow-up question or if you're trying to ask anything else, please let us know. Okay. uh, cool. Now I'm gonna move ahead to the second framework. uh, this is something that's gonna help you on a daily basis. I would say there's something that you keep revising every week, that or you can keep revising, let's say, on a monthly basis. This is more from a perspective that you have your current role, right? What you are doing, and you have a target role. Now, this is not just in terms of promotion. My example here definitely is a scenario to make it easy for everyone to understand that this is an SD1 to 2 promotion. But this can be any current role and any target role, right? And and what this framework actually does is, you see what your current role is, you see where you stand in your current role, right? Or what is the requirement of the current role. Uh, when I say requirement, probably everyone who is working here with some organization, uh, I expect that either in a formal or a non-formal way, you are still expected to do a few things, right? There's kind of this checklist, or there's kind of this things that you have to do to stand up to meet the bar or raise the bar at your current level. Um, and then there is a target job where you want to go, target role. It can be a different same role and a promotion. It can be a different role altogether, whatever it is, right? But what you're going to do in this framework or with the help of this framework is, you're just going to take three colors, red, yellow, green, right? You're going to take a current level, you're going to take a target, current job, you're going to take a target job, and you are going to say that, okay, first of all, do these look similar at all in any way, or are there any overlapping requirements of these particular current and target roles? If not, then you can operate them or pursue them fairly independently. But if they are related in some way, there is some overlap, which will happen in most of the cases. I would recommend going about this in this combined fashion, right? So, for example, let's take an example, right? The left is the current job requirement, which is an SD1. The right one is the target job requirement, which is an SD2, for example. Now, I know that SD1 is going to do, let's say, a low level design, uh, mentoring of interns, delivering independently, and some task specific documentation, right? I know that if I have to become an SD2, I'm not only going to do low level design, but I'm also going to do high level design. I'm going to mentor full time employees, FTEs or juniors or peers and interns. I'm also going to be delivering a bit via the others, maybe the juniors in my team, not just independently. And then I also may write some higher level documentations, right? Earlier I was writing just about my project. Now I may be writing more high level documents such as design or product requirement documents or whatever it is. This is just an example, right? So I've taken just some few top level points. So now let's say in the current role, you know that, hey, I'm doing the low level design, so mark it as green. What you have not done at all, or you have never heard at all, but is an expectation. And how would you get to know this is only after having a discussion with your manager, right? So when you take this list, maybe you have missed something out, you didn't know about it at all, and your manager is going to tell that, hey, you have not even considered this thing in your current level, right? Put it in there, mark it as red because this is the first time you are hearing it. Or if you already knew about it, you have never done it, mark it as red, right? Delivering independent, let's say you are delivering, your things are going well, your quality is good, pace is good, mark it as green. Task specific documentation, you are doing up to a certain level, but you still have some scope of improvement. Then on the target role, which is SG2, you know that you are doing low level, but you have to do a high level. So you mark it as yellow because one part of it is accomplished. You are mentoring, you have never mentored an intern as well, right? As you see on the left hand side, this means the one on the right hand side you have never done at all. So you have not even mentored interns, you have not mentored FTEs, so it becomes red. You have never delivered by others, you have never led a project where you were guiding or you were sort of the lead, right? So that's red. You have never written You have written some design documents, but you have never written a PRD, or you have not written the design documents as is expected at that level. So you are yellow, right? So that's an example. So once you fill this out with this framework, being critical of yourself, right? The aim here is not to make everything green just because we feel so, right? The aim here is to make things green as and when we accomplish them, and also our managers or our peers recognize them, or somebody else recognizes them, right? But stay true to yourself. Prepare the sheet in your plan, and write it down. Say that, hey, I'm green here. Why? Because I have these and these data points. I'm yellow here because I have these data points and these gaps. Red, I have no data points at all. I need opportunities, right? Just fill it out. Fill it out, being critical of yourself, and then leave an empty space for your manager to actually just copy the status columns once more, and allow your manager to fill in his understanding of your status as well, right? Red, yellow, green. Maybe you are thinking you are green in some place, and he says, no, no, you are actually yellow here, and vice versa. Sometimes you think that I have not done enough, but you have actually done it, and your manager may tell it to you, and you just didn't realize it. So, so the combination of these two frameworks, right? Reiterating, which is the strengths and motivation framework, which will give you slightly long-term picture in combination with an immediate picture, right, of where you are and where you are trying to be, what skills you have and what you are going to acquire, is gonna give you a very good idea of at least bridging the gaps, or the things that you didn't know until today, you have not even thought of until today or reflected about until today. When you take this picture, uh, trust me, I have followed this almost 6 years of my career. My career is almost 8 years. I started doing this in third year of my career, and it has been really helpful, right? You and make sure that you are not doing this once, as I said, right? You have to make sure that you are doing it on a continuous basis, at least once a quarter. Reflect, re-update this thing once in a quarter, right? um, and you would be able to write your CGP. You will be able to have a first draft to your CGP, and then you can improve it from there as per your discussion with your manager or mentor, right? That's okay. uh, so these are the two frameworks which will help you write a CGP. uh, as I said, write it, make it in an Excel sheet, write it in a document, be descriptive about it, uh, the way you feel the most comfortable. Okay. uh, so yeah, this is about CGP. We have already talked about the process which I showed you here. Now I think there's one last thing that I wanted to tell everyone, because we are also nearing our end time. uh, One of the things that so this was a survey done with a lot of folks, at least in the industry, and one thing that has turned out to be most beneficial for learning effectiveness is how you spend your time. So I just included this slide in terms of how, when you're spending your time or dividing your time, think about this, right? When you are let's say you have 40 hours a week, right? So you spend 70% of your time doing your job, actual deliverables of the job. 20% is something that you should spend on networking, getting to know people, maybe attending some presentations or getting some mentors and mentees. And learning is basically outside the direct job learning, something new that you're learning, right? 10% of the time. This combo has turned out to be the most effective for career growth of people, at least in terms of surveys, right? I forgot how many people were there in the survey, but this is the pie chart that you can aim for dividing your time in. If you're not able to spend your time in this way, try to talk to your manager and see if there is any possibility of doing it like this, right? Uh, with that, I come to an end of my presentation. I know that things are still very high level in this presentation. The aim was to sorry, just give me a second. The aim was to make sure that in this discussion you at least get that basic understanding on the framework that you can follow, right? There are going to be a whole lot of deep level questions. You can hit me up, or we can figure out a mechanism to have Q&As, but I'm going to take a pause now. Please feel free to ask any questions that you may have, or any call outs that you have. Hafsa, over to you.
I guess most of the questions were answered along the presentation, be it from our chat or LinkedIn or YouTube. But I guess someone is asking some question in chat.
Is
Let
it, Nikhil asks, is it possible to switch from support role to software development role if we are equipped with the right skills and technology? Definitely, yes, Nikhil. let me tell you, there have been a lot of folks when I was working at Amazon who were earlier in the support role, and they just they started having these conversations with their manager. They tried to understand what exactly it takes to become a a developer, right? And there are points like, okay, you need to start doing code reviews. You need to basically let me lay out a journey for you, right? So if you are a support engineer or in a support role, what is it that you are gonna do if you have to convert to or transition to an SD role? Uh, you're first gonna start with understanding what SD requires, right? And maybe taking the baby steps in the initial stages, because you have never, let's assume that you don't have a lot of experience of coding, or you're not an expert in that. So the first thing that you can do is just trying to be a part of discussions, the software discussions that are happening, right? Some feature is being developed, try to understand what is the tech being used there, why a certain approach is being taken. Maybe your first milestone could be that I'm going to do, maybe, let's say, every 6 or 8 out of 10 code reviews, right? You can't do each and every code review, but maybe you can say that, hey, I'm going to do at least these number of code reviews when they are raised from my team, right? For the features, that can be your first milestone. The second milestone can be, hey, once I've understood what this code base is via code reviews and maybe my own learning, I'm going to develop a very small feature that first time runs into a production, right? It can be as simple as, let's say, changing a string in production, right? Because first time production code base push can break things as well. We have all done that. I've broken things a lot of times. So you just need to have that prod experience, right? I will just push out this minimal code. Then your next milestone can be, I will actually develop a full blown feature, right? And maybe when you discuss all of this with your manager, they will give you a good path on what all are the milestones or what are the parameters that you have to hit, so that you can convert from the support role to software development role. But trust me, a lot of people do it. This is not a peculiar scenario, and you can do it as well. Uh, it depends on which kind of particular development you want to get into, and then it would then it would determine the skills and the technology that you would pick up. Does that answer your question, Nikhil? Cool.
Yeah. I think there's one more question that Pawan was asking, I guess. A
Uh,
little topic, but can you please explain
oh yeah, sorry.
an idea about what do you think of the future of NFT and Web3 in India as you're working in Metasec? I think, Pawan, you can connect with Vaibhav. I'll drop his LinkedIn channel in the chat. You can connect with him and you can ask him about the Metasky, about the NFTs. As this topic has a webinar is about the whole career growth, I think we would love to have some questions around that. But yeah, I would definitely drop Weber's LinkedIn link in the chat so you can just go follow him and ask him about his work, about his company. I think he has more than enough questions to answer you regarding that.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. I'll definitely, whoever wants to know more about Web3 or any other topic in general, feel free to drop me a LinkedIn message, right? Uh, you have sent me a LinkedIn request. Thanks, Ron. Uh, yeah, cool. So, Hafsa, I think that's it from my side. I just hope that for all of us, all of you who are here, this was useful. This at least gave you a good base to now start thinking about it. I just like to say that this is again just a talk, right? And nothing is gonna happen until you actually start doing it. So my recommendation is, for ones who haven't ever done this exercise, try to do it. Try to set a time. It does not have to be, let's say, tomorrow or day after. Just determine a time frame. Say that I have a goal to draft my CGP in the next month or so, right? At least first version of it, and have a discussion with my manager, right? Try to set that goal. Otherwise, it's never gonna happen, right? We are all engineers, and we know how we just push things till the very last moment. So yeah, that's pretty much about it. And one last thing, I can, if you're actually drafting the CGP and you need my input somewhere, based on how much time I have or how much bandwidth I get to reply, I'll try to just give you some guidance or clarify your queries on LinkedIn responses as well. Thanks, everyone. It was nice seeing so much enthusiasm.
That was the end of this wonderful session, and I would like to thank each one of you for joining us. Hope you learned something new from this today's session. We will look forward for your post on LinkedIn along with your key learnings. Don't forget to tag Recro, tag Webhub, tag me along with your post. And we have created a community for developers called Recro Tech Circle, wherein you can get connected with fellow developers to get career opportunities, ask for help, and link to join is in the chat. You can just go join the community, say hi to the people out there. And if there's anything, any topic that you want us to cover in our next webinar, we can bring great speakers like Webhub or the next webinar, maybe Webhub for any other 2.0 version of career growth. So yeah, please go and join the community. And we have made a LinkedIn post about the session. Do comment your learnings in this post. The link of the post is also in the chat. You can just go and drop the quick takeaways and what you liked about the session. If you have more questions, follow and connect Webber on LinkedIn. And I guess I've dropped his link already. He would be more than happy to connect with you personally and assist you with your doubts and queries and give you his valuable experience and information out there. And if you're exploring career opportunities, Recro is hiring passionate developers. Check the current openings at Recro. You may find something for yourself or your friend or your colleague if you're switching or opting for a change. And we'll make sure that we would place you in the top or A grade startups for the country.
Yeah.
To stay
So
updated.
may I add something here? Yeah. Guys, if you are looking for any opportunities, we are also hiring. So feel free to reach out to me as well.
So to stay updated with such events, follow us on social media, follow on Instagram, LinkedIn, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Well, this is all for the session, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being such a lovely audience. Hope to see you in the next session. Take care, stay safe. Thank you.